Since its birth in the Old West era, farming and ranching have been tied to Grand Junction's economy. Now the largest metro area on Colorado's western slope, recent decades have seen the region's picturesque landscapes attract a new wave of stakeholders.
One of the challenges in the West right now is finding common ground between livestock producers and agriculturalists and outdoor recreation people.
Typically running over 500 head of cattle on 12,000 acres of city-owned land, Janie Van Winkle and her husband Howard are accustomed to sharing resources and dealing with adversity. Drought last year forced them to sell off around 20% of their herd. While they rebuild, a downhill bike trail is looking to break ground and eventually cut through their ranch.
This particular part of Colorado has been a pretty underappreciated part of the state for a long time.
George Gotchis is general manager of Over the Edge Sports in nearby Fruita, which has become a mountain biking mecca. The area boasts hundreds of miles of single-track trails initially constructed on public land by volunteers, led by the Colorado Plateau Mountain Bike Trail Association, or COP-MOBA. The 30-year-old nonprofit has 5 chapters and roughly 500 members. In 2016, the group's $1.6 million Palisade Plunge Trail proposal was given the go-ahead by state government, though no funds were allocated. COP-MOBA president Scott Winan says it's not uncommon for a new trail to take a decade from concept to completion, and cites responsible partnerships with federal, county, city, and other community partners.
To build a mountain bike trail, we have to do a bunch of environmental studies, archaeological studies. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Initial trail plans would have sliced through the heart of the Van Winkles' lease with the city of Grand Junction. The ranchers were concerned that excess trash, trespassing, and habitat disruption would be a problem. Despite some missed opportunities early on, all sides were eventually able to come to the table, mend fences, and reach a consensus.
They're going to cut across 2 corners of that property, and that'll work for us, and they're comfortable with it too.
The trailhead will drop in atop scenic Grand Mesa, considered the largest flat-top mountain in the world at over 11,000 feet, and end 32 miles below in the town of Palisade.
And then down on the other side of that ridge and drop.
Some local business owners estimate trail users will generate a $2.5 million annual windfall for the region's economy.
It's an epic ride, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity is what I'm told. I'm not a bicyclist.
COP-MOBA and others stress their eye-opening multi-year discourse has helped community building between ranchers and cyclists.
We both love the land. We use it slightly differently. So that's probably bound to bring some differences of opinion too.
And the Van Winkles agree, even if sometimes it might be a tough pill for them to swallow.
In my opinion, it's the mountain that loses. All of us who live in the Grand Junction in the valley, this is a place you can look up to and know that it's pristine and it's special. And I think it changes the flavor.
All manner of activity on western public lands, whether biking, grazing, hunting, or mining, to name a few, fall under the purview of the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. Of the more than 245 million acres overseen by the federal agency, about 13% of the nation's land, over 8 million of those acres are in Colorado. Grazing permits on public land are administered by the BLM and the U.S. Forest Service. And federal numbers reveal livestock foraging activities generate almost $150 million annually in Colorado.
You expect that you're going to see livestock grazing in those same areas, and so I think a lot of the bicyclists realize that a lot of their trails actually came from cattle walking through this area. And somebody decided to ride a bike on it, and eventually it became a big sport and the BLM adopted those trails.
Colin Ewing is the National Conservation Area Manager for nearby McInnes Canyons.
Some of these lands are just too dry or too rugged to make it make sense for farming, so they were never homesteaded, and they ended up being managed by the Bureau of Land Management for multiple uses.
21 grazing allotments sit among the nearly 300 miles of trail and river access that bring 250,000 visitors per year to McInnes Canyons.
You're seeing that a lot in the West now, ranching and mining towns that are still ranching and mining towns, but also are inviting tourism into their economy.
One of the BLM's biggest challenges is accommodating multiple uses of terrain owned by all Americans. In some cases, that necessity has become the mother of invention.
So this is a bicycle cattle guard, so that the bicyclists don't have to get off their bike to open the gate, and so the gates don't get left open, so the cow stays in the pasture and everybody has a good time.
Many ranchers employ rotational grazing practices to regenerate pasture, but the Van Winkels say high visitor turnover can quickly degrade shared ground and leave regulars to blame.
We're an easy target, but in reality, it's all of the uses, and we have to figure out how we're going to make that all work together.
And toward that end, beginning next year, Van Winkle will serve as president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association and likely be asked to weigh in on similar issues across the state. And if fundraising goals are met by the end of July, COP Mobile will begin phase 1 of the Palisade Plunge.
We were able to come up with a compromise, and I think that's really important no matter what we're talking about. Just understanding each other, that's a really important piece.
For Market to Market, I'm Josh Buettner.